I told him I slept with his boss to make him jealous. Now he's making me pay the price.
I feel like I've ruined my husband's job and made his work difficult. It's all my fault, and it has to be the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. I cheated on my husband. I gave in to the temptation, the costly temptation that kept showing up to me. They say that whoever finds a wife finds a good thing, but I don't think I've been a good discovery to my husband. I'm pretty sure he's hating me with every fiber in his bone right now. Hate is not an exaggeration. I even think it's an understatement. I can't even face my parents right now. What will I tell them? I cheated on my husband and might ruin his career and end his job. There's no way my parents would ever take me back after that. My husband did not just take revenge on me. He literally shattered me to pieces and made sure I regretted cheating on him. My husband did not let it go at all. He has ruined me in so many ways that I cannot even begin to describe the level of pain I feel. He made sure that he left no stone unturned. I'm only realizing now that I have been through a whole lot. And it's crazy, but I can't deny the fact that everything I have been through is as a result of the big mistakes I've made. My name is Faith, and I'm a 24 years old entrepreneur. I've been married to my husband, Leonard, for the past 2 years now. We dated for 2 years before we got married. I met my husband when I was 20 years old. Leonard is quite older than me, though. He's 27 years old. He's a banker, and he's a very smart one at that. Leonard is very hardworking, and I don't ever want to miss the chance of bragging about that. That's why the consequences of my actions are finally dawning on me, and I've realized that cheating on him has to be the worst mistake I've ever made. Cheating on Leonard wasn't an accident. I'll be the world's biggest liar if I come here and lie that it was an accident and I didn't know how it happened. I know exactly how everything happened, and that's why I'm currently disgusted at myself. It's normal for human beings to do things consciously, then regret it all later. I'm not different, and that's why I've come to share this big mistake with everyone. For the past 2 years of my marriage to Leonard, I've been myself, and he's been himself. We never let our work disrupt our marriage, and we always show up and show out for each other. Ever since I married Leonard, I've actually never met his boss until a few months ago. Sure, I've been to his workplace a couple of times, but I've never met anyone in particular, and he never bothered introducing me to any of them. I can't be the only one who's not familiar with everyone at my husband's workplace, right? Exactly 7 months ago, Leonard was invited to the end-of-the-year party his bank was holding. He asked me to be his +1, and I said yes in a heartbeat. I didn't want to ever miss a chance to support him. While we dressed up and chatted happily, I would have never guessed that the end-of-the-year party would be what caused my marriage doom. I had no idea that I was walking right into a trap. If I had known, I would have never gone to that party. Leonard bought me a nice dress and a pair of shoes. The color theme of the party was wine, and I didn't really have anything appropriate in that color, so he bought me something to wear. My sister is an upcoming makeup artist, and she's the one that helped me with my makeup that night. I feel like shouting her out, but I want to keep our identities a secret as much as I can. When Leonard and I arrived at the party, it was a lot to take in. I never really expected a bank's end-of-the-year party to be as extravagant as that one was. The mood was nice, and Leonard asked to properly introduce me to his colleagues. Before, I'd only come to his workplace once in a while, and randomly greet anyone I came across at that particular moment. I felt excited to meet my husband's colleagues because he always told me so much about them. He introduced me to his friends first. They were very nice and welcoming, and most of them even told me just how smart my husband is. I felt like a proud wife that day because they were definitely telling the truth. Before Leonard could introduce me to his boss had something to attend to. He left. Leonard and I just went around testing the cocktails and tasting the finger-licking food. I even forgot all about the person my husband wanted to introduce to me. But sometime into the party, his boss walked up to us and apologized for not being able to speak to us earlier. We didn't have a problem with it at all. Before I go on, I'd like to properly state that my husband's boss is actually not one of the owners of the bank. He's just the head of the department my husband works at in the bank. His name is Raphael, and he's 30 years old. When my husband introduced us, I didn't see it as a big deal, and I didn't take interest in him at all. Of course, I noticed that he held my hand a little longer than expected, but that was the only thing I'd noticed that was unusual. He didn't even stand with us for long before he left. My husband always talked about his colleagues, but he never really bragged about his boss, so I imagined that they didn't have a relationship outside of work. We went on with the evening and had as much fun as possible. I didn't see Raphael after that, and I honestly didn't even remember I met him. That party and our very first meeting was extremely insignificant, and it's not an understatement. There was nothing out of the ordinary that happened. The real drama started weeks after the first meeting with him. After the party, Leonard and I went home and chatted about everything that happened at the party. That's how we usually acted after every event we were able to attend together. Days after the event, I forgot all about the meeting and the party itself. Life went on as usual, and I focused on my business. As an entrepreneur, I find myself indulging in any business ideas I get. I like the concept of earning money and doing something productive. My best friend and I co-own a salon, and that has to be one of the most important businesses I indulge myself in. One day, I got an unexpected visitor. When I say unexpected visitor, to know you guys might have guessed right already. Raphael came to the salon. I didn't even take note of him or recognize him at first. I was busy with a customer, but my best friend came to meet me and said we had a customer who claims to know me. I got curious and decided to go see who she was talking about. I was very surprised to see my husband's boss, Raphael, with the young lady. I was very surprised, and I even had to do a double take because I could not believe my eyes. He introduced himself again and asked if I remembered him. I told him I did, and that was when he asked me to give him a minute of my time. I didn't know how to act because it felt awkward to be interacting with my husband's boss without him around. It was even more awkward because I only met him once. When he pulled me to the side to have a conversation, he told me that someone recommended him to come to my salon. I did not really understand how he suddenly got a recommendation to come to my salon and how he knew that I was the one that could own it. I got curious and asked him who had directed him to my salon. He just told me that he always heard from my husband that I owned a salon. To be honest, the whole conversation was awkward because I did not know how to address Raphael. After the awkward conversation and telling me how important business is, he told me that the young lady he brought with him was his niece, and she needed to have her hair done. He said he'd been looking for a salon where he knew someone so he could drop his niece off and be rest assured that she would stay and have her hair done. According to him, his niece was quite rebellious, and she often ran away when he left her at places. That's why he decided to bring her to my salon when he found out I had a salon. I honestly found his explanation weird, but I needed to make money and had no problem with babysitting a teenager. I agreed to make sure she stays till he comes to pick her up after work. That was the arrangement we made before he left. My best friend got his niece's hair done while I focused on the customer I'd been working on before. Barely 4 hours later, he was back again to pick up his niece. He thanked me and said he was very grateful. I found his pleasantries weird because it was not a big deal that I let his niece stay at the salon for that long. Many people did that before and it was never a problem, but I accepted his thanks and told him that it was not a big deal. I just labeled the incident as pure coincidence. I did not want to think much about it because it was not a big deal. My best friend and I were actually happy because we felt like our salon was popular, lol. Only if I knew that what I thought to be a coincidence was not even a coincidence at all. When I got back home that day, I contemplated telling my husband what had happened. It was not a big deal, and I always had customers at the salon, so I didn't know if it was necessary to tell my husband. But after some time, I decided it was best I tell him so that he could thank his boss on my behalf. I wanted to properly thank him for patronizing me, and so I decided to tell my husband. When I told my husband, he did not see it as a big deal either. He told me that he had mentioned that I owned a salon at work many times, and maybe that was why his boss decided to patronize me. He agreed to thank him on my behalf, and that was it. Life went on, and I focused on my business as usual. But 2 weeks later, I got another unexpected visit from Raphael. He came with his niece again, and this time he said he wanted to get her hair washed. I thanked him for coming again, and then I washed his niece's hair. Unlike last time, he actually stayed till I washed the hair. I did not expect him to stay till I finished working because I expected him to go to work. I was curious, but I did not bother to ask him the question. I didn't want to intrude, and I was still very formal with him because he was my husband's boss. I just assumed that maybe he had the right to stay out of work for long because he was the boss of a particular department. After getting his niece's hair washed, I actually refused to collect money for the hair wash. Her hair wasn't even that dirty, and I did not have a lot of work to do. I just thanked him for coming, and then I decided to help his niece braid her hair into 2 pieces. He was not ready to accept my kind gesture, and he said business was business, and there was no need to give him a discount. I said I was just doing it because his niece did not have very dirty hair, and I barely did anything. He finally accepted the gesture and left with his niece. After he left, my best friend actually sat me down and told me that she had a feeling he was just looking for an excuse to come see me. I took everything she said as a joke and said it was inappropriate. I even feel like a fool as I write this because I can't believe that something so inappropriate happened. The fact that I found it awkward and inappropriate when my best friend spoke about it, and then I went on to do the exact opposite of what I condemned her for is crazy. My best friend first started speaking about everything as a joke, and she did not really seem serious. When I got back home that day, I refused to tell my husband about the encounter. I felt like if my best friend made a joke about him just coming to see me and using his niece as an excuse, my husband could have felt the same thing. I didn't want to bring up unnecessary ideas in his head, so I decided to keep the information to myself. After that day, I did not see Raphael for up to 1 month. To be honest, I even forgot all about what my best friend said to me. But the day Raphael came to the salon, I couldn't help but finally start understanding what my best friend meant. That day, he did not come with his niece. He came alone and asked to see me. Initially, I told him that I was busy with work because there were a lot of customers in the salon. I initially thought that I would be able to send him away because I felt uncomfortable speaking to him in private. That's why I said there were too many customers in the salon and that I was very busy. But to my surprise, he offered to wait for me till I was less busy. That really got me surprised because I did not expect him to offer to wait for me. I assumed that he would be very busy with work and did not have any time to waste. But that wasn't the case because he did not have a problem with waiting for me. I decided to intentionally waste his time and see if he would eventually get hard and leave. But he did not leave, guys. He stayed till I finished every single customer's hair. My best friend told me to decide and told me that she was right. She told me to tread carefully and that she could already see that he was looking for something. Her words confirmed all the fear I had in me, and I knew that something was going on. I finally went to speak to him and asked him why he came to the salon. He sensed that I was not really in a good mood and noticed how awkward I was asking. He told me that he was sorry for coming to my workplace suddenly, but it was important. I can't even begin to explain the level of awkwardness and shock I felt as he stood in front of me and spoke to me. My best friend had already put ideas in my head, and I knew that whatever was going on in his head could not be good at all. He told me that he could not stop thinking about me since he saw me at the party when my husband introduced us. He said he'd started looking for ways to meet me again, and that was why you asked around till he found out where my salon was. At first, when he started speaking, I tried to end the conversation and act like I was not listening to him. I was trying to give him the benefit of doubt and make him correct his words in case he had been making a mistake. But he refused to do that. He seemed to be very confident in what he was saying, and he did not change his words. I felt very weird, and I did not know what to say. That was the first time another man was speaking to me in such a way since I had gotten married. And it made me more uncomfortable that the person talking to me like that was my husband's boss. I told him that it was inappropriate for him to be speaking to me in that way. I said I would pretend like I did not hear everything he had said and pretend like you never came into the salon that day. That's what I told him, guys, because I did not want to disrespect my husband. But it seems like I ended up disrespecting me in the worst way anyway. Even after what I said, Raphael did not make a move to leave. I asked him to live politely again, but he refused. The only way I was able to make him leave was when I threatened to call my husband. He left immediately, but not after giving me his business card. Even though everything was surprising and it all felt like a bad dream, I knew that there was not anything good that could come out of entertaining Raphael. He was just infatuated and wanted to use me as his way of entertaining himself. I'd seen many movies about such situations, and I didn't want to fall prey to it. That's why it even hurts me most, now that I ended up falling prey to it, even after all the ways I tried to resist. I don't know how to tell you guys what I did when I got home that day. I know I will be judged and called several names, and I honestly do think I deserve it. I didn't tell Leonard what happened at the salon. It was mainly because I knew that telling him would raise his suspicions. I found it very embarrassing and awkward, and I didn't want him to have a bad working environment at work. That's when I realized that Raphael knew very well that I would never tell Leonard what he did, because I knew that he was Leonard's boss at work. He knew that I would try to protect Leonard at work, and that was why he was very confident. And I don't want this to get so long, so I'm going to start telling you all everything in the most flashy way possible. After that day when Raphael told me his intentions, he kept coming to the salon every week. It was a very consistent visit, and even my best friend noticed. She advised me to talk to Leonard about it, but I refused. I chose to keep quiet about it. Maybe I actually liked the way he kept coming to the salon. I'm very ashamed of myself because I refused to tell Leonard about any of it. I just kept entertaining the visits and pretending like I did not notice any of it. My best friend warned me several times, but I refused to listen to her. So guys, Raphael did not just come empty-handed. He kept coming with gifts and several things. I don't know why or how they decided to be consistent. Less than a month after he started coming to the salon consistently, I foolishly started making conversation with him. Because I also work on the weekends at the salon, Raphael was able to come to see me on the weekend because he was not at work. Whenever he came over, we would spend hours chatting about random things. I didn't really know what I was even doing. I can't deny the fact that I kept indulging him in several ways. Weeks after he started visiting and I started indulging him, he started inviting me over to his house, and I went. I never told that my husband noticed anything. I'm very ashamed of myself, and I can't believe that I stooped so low. It was the only one of those visits to Raphael's house that things got to another stage, and that was when I officially cheated on my husband. Immediately it happened. I finally got to my senses and ran out of his house. I was so disgusted with myself that I took several showers after getting home. I felt like I committed the most outrageous thing, and in a way, that is the truth. I cheated on my husband with his own boss. There's nothing I could say to justify what I did, and that's why I know that I got everything I deserved. After the incident at Raphael's house, I stopped going to the salon for almost 1 month. I blocked his number and tried my best to avoid anything related to him. I didn't even let my husband touch me for days because I felt very guilty. It was very bad, but I am sure that I deserved everything. The guilt I felt was just the tip of the iceberg. The revenge that my husband ended up taking has to be the worst. He did not let me go easily, and he got a very bad revenge. I know that I shouldn't have expected anything less. I know that I had a very good marriage and there was nothing wrong with it. For the longest time, I kept on asking myself why I did what I did. I don't know what led me to do it. I held out for a very long time and I did not want to give in, but I ended up giving in. Even when he started coming to the salon regularly, I just kept telling myself that it was a temporary thing and I was just trying to keep myself entertained. But now I know I have just been making an excuse to lead myself into cheating on my husband. I've been slowly giving in without even knowing it. I acted like it was just a temporary thing, and I was just trying to humor myself, but it was all a lie. I can't keep lying to myself and pretend like I did not know where everything would have ended up. Why else would I entertain a man that clearly told me that he had feelings for me? I'm not a child, and I obviously knew that there was something you wanted from me. And I foolishly ended up giving to him at the detriment of my marriage, self-respect, and loyalty. Even while I was burying myself in my self-guilt and self-pity, I never imagined that my husband was aware of everything. I didn't know that he was aware of everything that had been going on. I thought that I was leaving him in the dark and that he would only know when I finally confessed the truth to him. I will be completely honest, because I am not trying to sugarcoat anything. If I am asked whether or not I actually planned on telling my husband the truth, I'll honestly say that I never thought of it. I knew that the truth would eventually come out one way or another, but I never really had the courage to tell him. That's why I know that I deserved everything you did to me. I kept lying to his face and pretending like everything was okay. It's even more scary that my husband knew the truth and found out on his own that I cheated on him with his boss. If you are wondering how he knew and how I found out that he was aware, I'll tell you now. I remember telling you at the start of this post that my husband is a very smart person. When I told you all that, I meant every word of it. He's very smart and attentive towards his environment, and there is no way you can hide anything from him. He notices every little detail, and that's how he was able to discover that something was wrong. Exactly 2 months ago, I got the shock of my life when Leonard did something very outrageous. Like I told you all, Leonard is a banker, and it only makes sense that I would save my money in the bank he works at. He's also the one that does my taxes for me and sorts everything out. Everything regarding my finances is done by my husband because he's a banker. Lol. I just stupidly made sure he was in charge of everything. He's even the one that helps me save. When I first got married to him, I was a very reckless spender. I'm not trying to say that I earned a lot of money. I ain't just the normal income, but I was a very reckless spender and I bought everything I saw. But when I married my husband, he started teaching me the art of saving. He taught me about finances and how to be a better entrepreneur. His advice really helped me, and that is why I started making him in charge of most things regarding my taxes and savings. Call me stupid, but there were even times when I would keep my money with him in case I was tempted to spend it. I was never worried because he had his own money, and he always returned it to me when I really needed it. Sometimes he would even reward me with some money when I saved a lot of money. I never imagined that the mutual trust we had would end up making me lose everything. I suddenly got a huge debit all right one day. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur, so most of the money from my business is saved in the bank. My husband knows my PIN, and he's even the one in charge of most of my finances, like I said. I always save money with him sometimes, and the money is kept in his bank. On that particular day, all my money was gone. There was literally nothing left for me anymore. It felt like I was literally saying stars, guys. I was at the salon, and I practically bolted out of the salon and ran home. I didn't need a seer to tell me what had happened to my money. There was only one person who knew my PIN and was in charge of all my money. I knew that it had to be my husband who took the money, and I was not wrong. When I got home, he wasn't home, so I had to wait for him to return. When he came back, I proceeded to ask him what had happened to my money, and that was when I got another shock of my life. My husband slapped me hard on the face, and I fell back in fear. The rage and anger in his eyes gave me goosebumps, and I swear that I can still see the image of how angry he had been. He shook his head infinitesimally and said to me that I had been the worst decision he had ever made in his life. Those words literally pierced into my skin. I don't know if writing this would ever be able to describe just how much hatred I saw in his eyes. Leonard looked at me like I had been so disgusting. He told me that I had to be a fool because I was very loose and stupid. I was so shocked by everything that not even a single word came out from her mouth. I was just too stunned to speak, and I knew there was nothing I could say that would make any sense. He proceeded to tell me how he had been aware of the fact that I have been cheating on him. Yes, guys, he has been aware of it for some time. He called me dumb for thinking I could mess with him and get away with it. The amount of anger I saw in Leonard that day was very foreign to me. I'd never seen him so angry, and I never believed that he could be that upset. I was even very shocked that he had found out I was cheating on him. He told me how he suspected something was up when I told him his boss had visited my salon. Apparently, he was actually not on good terms with his boss, and so when he heard that his boss came to my salon, he knew that something was up, but he refused to tell me about it. He had hired someone to keep an eye on me, and that person has been giving him reports of everything I had been up to. Even the day I followed Raphael to his house, Leonard was aware of it. I was very shocked, and I asked him why he never confronted me. He told me that he preferred giving me a taste of my own medicine by keeping me in the dark till he got his revenge. I asked him why he never tried to stop me even before Raphael and I had taken things to the next level. Leonard told me that he didn't care what I ended up doing. He wanted to know I would still be loyal to him, and he got his answer. He told me that all the money I'd saved with him and the money in his bank was now his. I could not even believe my ears. Leonard was not ready to change your mind even after I begged. My best friend's money was also in his bank, and I knew that she would soon ask for it. It felt like the whole world had suddenly stopped, and I was in the midst of a lot of chaos. Before I could even get my thoughts together, Leonard tossed the divorce papers on the table. I could visibly see that he had already signed the divorce papers. There was nothing I could do, and I accepted the consequences of my actions. I asked Leonard to forgive me and that I was very sorry for everything I did to him. But Leonard told me that he would never give me the satisfaction of granting me forgiveness. As if all that was not enough, he asked me to leave the house immediately. I had no way to go and I was broke, but he didn't care. Even though I had been going through a lot that day, I asked him what would happen at his workplace now. Leonard looked me in the eye and told me that he was not going to do anything about it. He said I was not worth losing his job over. He told me that he will still go to work and pretend like his boss didn't do anything. But I knew that Leonard was just bluffing. I knew that he was still going to do something. I'm very worried that his career is going to suffer because of me. Men have ego, and they will never let something like this go. I feel really bad, and I know that I am to blame. I already feel enough guilt, and I don't think I'll be able to handle it if he loses his job because of me. Leonard made it clear that I was just a stupid mistake. That was all Leonard said to me before he kicked me out of the house. It's been 2 months now, and I am now wallowing in my own self-pity. Raphael never contacted me, even though I'm sure he heard of what happened. The rumors spread like wildfire, and I'm sure everyone in our city knows the truth. I can see that I was just a pawn in his game. He had issues with my husband at work and decided to use me to get on my husband's nerves. I was stupid enough to fall for everything and end up as the collateral damage. I signed the divorce papers, and our divorce is still in process. I don't know how I'm going to survive the next few weeks, but I guess I'll survive just like I've survived for the past 2 months. I don't know what to do, Reddit. My guilt is eating me up. I have a court hearing in a few minutes, so I will end this update here. I'll make an update soon after the divorce finalized. Update. I'm now a divorced woman. I cannot even believe that my marriage did not last 3 years. I cannot believe that I made myself fall prey to a lot of things. I am miserable, Reddit. I don't know how to get my life back together. The comments were just as outrageous as I thought they'd be. I didn't expect anything else. You all didn't disappoint at all. I'm still thankful for the comments because it's helped me work on myself even though it's been difficult. The divorce was finalized a few days ago, and since there are no children involved, there was less drama. I got alimony even though it was cut down to the minimum. And I sound like a greedy woman, but what can I do? Leonard took every cent and penny that belonged to me. I'm broke, and I even owe my best friend a lot of money. I tried taking up the case in court, but I lost even before the case began. I didn't have money to hire a lawyer, so I was advised by my parents to just let it go. My parents are devastated, and they do not want to talk to me. The only person that has been accommodating is my best friend. She keeps reminding me of her money, and she's also very angry with me, but she has been nice enough to let me stay with her. I discovered that there was actually a lot of drama in Leonard's workplace. Apparently, Leonard already had a fight with his boss. Since his boss is not directly the owner of the bank and is just the head of Leonard's department, he could not do anything to sabotage his career like I feared. Leonard is still working at his bank, and that just makes me pity myself more. The boss and Leonard are trying to keep a cordial relationship at work, and nothing really changed for them. But I am here suffering a lot because of the decision me and Raphael made. The only difference is that Raphael is not at the receiving end of all the drama. I don't think there's anything that could ever describe the level of self-hate I feel right now. But I think I'll be a narcissist if I didn't feel guilty at all. I'd hate myself if I didn't feel bad for what I did. I'm focusing on my business right now so I can be able to pay my best friend back. I'll stop the update, guys. That's all that's been happening in my life. I'm thankful that I started this journey and decided to share my story. Thank you all for listening to me.
You know, sometimes coming from a big family comes with a price of betrayal and disloyalty. The person or the people you had thought had your back turned your back on you and betrayed you in a most cruel way. When you report the issue to the elders, they take the other person's side. I don't know if you understand me. I had brought someone from the outside who I thought would build and extend my home, but instead, she extended someone else's home, and that person was my cousin. Imagine. It's still hard talking about this. In order to heal, I have to share it and move on. As hard as it is, I have to man up and face the music, no matter how bad the tune is. Some will understand what I'm talking about, and some will catch it later. So I, M33, am naturally a quiet and reserved person. I love peace, but people take that for a ride. I got married when I was only 23 years old. I thought I had found my soulmate or the right person to share my life and grow old with, not knowing that I was actually bringing someone who would be my worst nightmare. I grew up in a village that was ruled by a king, meaning we live by rules. And if you ever do something unlawful, the king and the village people will ban you. A man had to go to the reed dance where maidens usually do their singing and traditional dancing competitions. Also to do a termly checkup if they were still pure virgins. So young and old men would attend the dance, some to watch the maidens and some to choose wives for themselves. My father was in a polygamous marriage. He had 3 wives and he chose all of them from the reed dance a long time ago. In our village, a man had to have more than 2 wives who would bear him children to expand the family surname. That tradition started way back from our great ancestors, till now it's still in operation. But nowadays, some choose maidens to use them for their selfish reasons. Some old men would choose young girls to become their wives at a young age. It's disgusting and shameful, I tell you. So I found my wife, or must I say my ex-wife, during the reed dance. My father had asked me and my brothers to go and watch it. Maybe we would get ourselves wives. Well, to tell the truth, I didn't want a wife. I was still young to have a wife. I still wanted to enjoy my young life, but if you are a boy from the villages that are ruled by kings, and your father is a king's servant, it's compulsory for us to get wives, not those city wives, but well-respected and dignified wives from the village. So there was this beautiful lady that had caught my eyes. She was a medium-sized, dark woman. She was dancing so beautifully, I was taken back, no lie. Until it was her turn to do the dance, she danced and came to my direction. I had thought she was going to choose one of my brothers. Only to see her coming straight to me, she took my hand and put on a beaded bracelet that symbolizes that she had chosen me to be her boyfriend. I was really taken back by her act. She was really amazing as she was doing her dance. A week later, we had started seeing and knowing each other on another level. She was polite and very humble. Her smile was so beautiful, and it complemented her beauty so well. I enjoyed every moment I had spent with her. Our relationship kept growing to a point that a few months later, I told my father that I was ready to take a wife. I then decided to take the next step and ask my uncles and brothers to stand in on my behalf to go to Pamela's F30 homestead to ask for her hand in marriage. After everything was done traditionally, we asked to get married in church only. Our relationship was a bliss. Well, at least that's what I had thought. Pamela was so sweet and loved people, so she got along very well with my siblings, especially my male cousin. I had thought that their friendship was pure and innocent since they were the same age. I took Pam as my wife when she had just turned 20 and she had dreams of going to university to further her studies. So I had to make a plan as her husband to make sure that she achieves her dreams and goals. That time I was working at Transnet as a transport admin clerk, so I was able to afford her fees. The following year, Pam got enrolled at Durban University of Technology, which was far away from our village. As much as I was not comfortable for her to live in the city, but she had to chase her dreams, and my cousin was also attending the same university. So I was somehow relieved that at least one of the people I trusted was there with her. I would see my wife during school holidays or when I was not working, so I had to drive to Durban to see her. Sometimes I would find her at the students' accommodation chilling with my cousin. I didn't pay much attention to that because I trusted them, thinking they would never betray me, but I guess I had to trust a stone than a human being. So 3 years passed, and Pamela graduated from university. In her first year in university, she got pregnant, and unfortunately, we lost the pregnancy. I was really heartbroken, so was Pam, but her situation was worse because she even distanced herself. She started spending more time with my cousin even when she was home. She was no longer doing her wifely duties as she was supposed to. I had thought she was grieving, but can a person grieve for the whole 3 years, and during those years, you would see her beautiful smile and loud laugh when she was with my cousin? When she was with my cousin, she would be smiling more and carefree. I once confronted them about their close friendship, but they denied my allegations, even though my conscience was telling me another story. Their coziness and the way they were free with each other raised an eyebrow. I am a person who loves doing morning runs to freshen my mind and get a good morning breeze before going to work. I once asked Pam to join me and got offended thinking I was body shaming her. I didn't understand her outburst because she allowed my cousin to call her fat when they were teasing each other. So I let her be and continued to do my runs. Sometimes I would do long runs if I wanted to clear my head. So one Sunday afternoon, I had just returned home from a long run. I walked into the living room and saw my wife and cousin sitting on the couch, laughing and chatting like they were old friends. I felt a sudden pang of unease, but I brushed it off as mere paranoia. Plus, they had told me that there was going on when I had confronted them. But as I watched them, I noticed something strange. My wife and cousin were being too familiar with each other, too touchy-feely. They were sitting too close, their legs touching, and their hands resting on each other's knees. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. My suspicions got high, and I decided to investigate this issue to ease my conscience, but I was really confident that something was really going on between the two. So I decided to investigate further. I started asking questions again, pretending to be oblivious to what was going on. But my wife and cousin were too clever. They saw right through my act. They denied everything, telling me I was being paranoid and reading too much into their friendship. But I knew the truth. I could feel it in my bones. And I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. As the days passed, I became more and more obsessed with uncovering the truth. I started following my wife and cousin, watching their every move. I would wait for them not too far from their favorite spot near the river, or follow them when they were saying they were going to town. My wife would say she was accompanying my cousin to town. I was determined to catch them in the act, to see for myself what was going on. I didn't take my wife's accompanying cousin to town. During my investigation, I once took my wife's phone. I knew her password since she also knew mine. I checked her socials and found out that she had been sending my cousin her pictures wearing lingerie. More like different ones. I didn't even know that she had lingerie. There were also videos of my wife doing those seductive dances and sending them to my cousin. I was oblivious about what I saw. I got so angry to a point that I wanted to attack them both. In rural areas, the thing called divorce doesn't exist, especially if you are married traditionally. So Pam and I are tied to each other by God and ancestors. I couldn't even share the same bed as her. She had shown me that she was not the innocent and humble girl I had found or that had chosen in front of my father and siblings. She even gave me a beaded bracelet that symbolizes love, meaning I would be stuck with her till the end of time, unless if she gets married to another family, then the elders would have to consult with the ancestors, my home ancestors, to relieve and allow her to be introduced in another surname and ancestors. Before I took the matter to the adults, I confronted the wife about the videos and her conversation with my cousin. The nerve she had to just stare at me and lie on my face, but I had every proof that she was cheating, so I slapped her hard. She couldn't believe it because I was not a violent person. I respect my peace. After I slapped her, she ran out, and I was pretty sure that she was going to cry to my cousin. My cousin came to me looking deadly. He started fighting me till the fight escalated to a point that my brothers came in to stop the fight. I was furious at the fact that they both had lied to me, to my face, when I asked what was going on. The way I was so angry, I wanted to hurt someone so bad. I mean, how could this girl choose me in front of my family, then she goes and does this shameful act while married to me, with my cousin? The fact that I had trusted them when they went to university together, I thought their friendship was pure. Little did I know that I was made a fool and deceived. My brothers asked us to sit down and solve whatever issue that we had, civilly. I didn't want to solve anything. I wanted them to feel the wrath of making me a fool. The brothers asked what we were fighting about. I told them that I will tell them once I have gathered enough information about the wife of mine and dear cousin. So I became obsessed with finding hard proof, and I wanted the family to know about the snake they were keeping in our yard. I didn't want them to see only pictures and messages because they would definitely deny everything, so I planned to find them on the act. I know it was evil of me, but what would I have done? And finally, after weeks of surveillance, I got my proof. I saw them together, in a secluded spot, their arms around each other, their lips locked in a passionate kiss. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me, and I knew I had to do something. I took pictures of them, but they were not enough for the family to believe me. I mean, this girl was a virgin when I married her, meaning she started getting loose when I had taken her virginity. After that, she saw a great opportunity to do infidelity, not with someone from university, but she decided to do it with my cousin. The person I live with is in the same yard. That was pure disrespect, and to be taken for a ride. I wanted to show them what being taken for a ride was like. I wanted them to regret the day they first got attracted to each other. A few weeks later, they went back to university. I was obsessed with finding whatever that was going on between. I couldn't rest without finding the hard evidence, so I was able to convince the family to allow me to leave the loose cannon. I kept my wife and cousin's shameful act for a while because I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of the whole family. I know some would say I have failed to rule my house and look at me as a weak man. Already I was feeling like a failure that my wife had chosen to find solace in another man's arms. What pisses me off more is that Pam didn't even bother saying anything. I mean, communication is one of the greatest keys to a successful and strong marriage and relationship. Why did she fail to communicate with me, and why did she agree to marry me knowing very well that she had some feelings for my cousin? I felt like a fool. A few months later, things were getting worse. My wife and cousin were unstoppable to a point that even the elders had noticed the relationship they had. I tried denying so that I would tell them when I have gathered much concrete evidence. So I asked one of the boys from the village who was doing IT at their university to help me plant a camera in my wife's residential room, also in my cousin's room. I couldn't even look my wife in the eyes because in front of the elders she acted like a good wife, while I knew that she was a fox on a sheep's skin. One day she came to our bedroom and asked us to talk. There was nothing I wanted to talk to her about, so I told her to go to her boyfriend's room, but she refused and caused a scene. Thanks to the fact that when we got married, we were forced to build our own house in the yard since it was big enough for plenty of houses. So when she caused a scene and started kicking things, acting like a psycho, I slapped her and she fell on the bed. She started fighting back, but I just took out my belt and whipped her with it. Did I do wrong by acting like that? I was avoiding being called an abuser or a woman beater, so that's why I opted to whip her like a child, because she was acting like one. For the whole month, she went back to university. I missed her, I missed my wife. My mind and body wanted me to drive to Durban so I could see her and maybe apologize. But what would I be apologizing for, because I was a victim in all this ordeal? My heart wanted nothing to do with her. As much as it was heartbreaking and disappointing to know that my wife was attending the same school as my cousin. Where was the bro code there? How could you sleep or even develop a relationship with your cousin's wife? It's just so disgusting and disloyal. A couple of months later, my father and the elders summoned me and Pam to a family meeting regarding the issue that we were facing. I had recently gotten the evidence I was looking for. I couldn't wait to show the family what the Virgin Mary of a wife I had and their precious son, who is my cousin, did, all in the name of we're going to study in Durban, while their study was getting on top of each other doing shameful acts. Worst part, the woman is married, so when she gets to Durban, her panties get loose and forget that she has a husband back at home. I was in so much fury. I wanted to destroy them both for making me a fool. If I was green, I would have looked like Hulk when angry. I was going crazy because I loved this girl. She was my perfect imperfection, but she was a slut. I had thought Virgin Marys were loyal and honest, but I guessed wrong. She became my worst nightmare in a few years of our marriage. Well, I found out when we were a few years into our marriage. Maybe they started sleeping together right after our wedding day. Who knows? So the family called and addressed the issue that we were facing and that there was a big elephant in the room. You wouldn't believe who that big elephant in the room is. It was me. Imagine, I was the big elephant in the room, meaning I was the one on the wrong in all of everything that my so-called wife and my cousin were doing. Their abomination made me look like a bad person. The elders kept talking and yapping about me failing to maintain my house and my wife's needs. I got really pissed off because the very same wife they were defending and telling me that I was failing was the same wife that had asked me that she had a wish to further her studies, but they couldn't afford it at her home. I took that responsibility as her husband and paid for her studies. Now I am an incompetent and failing husband. Those people were shitting on me. I'm telling you. So as they were still blubbering and exchanging words, I asked them to follow me to the lounge. There was something I needed to show them. I then asked them to call cousin, also because he was also part of the meeting, so I didn't understand why he was not in the room with us. When the cousin was called, I took out the USB that the boy I had paid gave me and put it on a TV, then pressed play. Some elders were in awe when they watched the video of my wife and cousin getting it on in Pam's student room while her roommate was out. Some were shouting at me as if I was a child, telling me to switch the thing off, while others called me heartless and selfish. Well, those who called me heartless and selfish were my cousin's parents, meaning they knew about the abomination that their son was doing with my wife. I remember hearing my cousin's mother saying I was the reason why my wife found comfort in another man's bed. It was because I was not a man enough and didn't have balls to rule and treat a woman. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to at least defend me, but they just looked at me like I had grown horns. That time the video was still playing. I was actually enjoying the show, much to the elders' annoyance, who kept telling me to switch it off. Pam was crying and kept asking that I switch off the video and fix our relationship. I don't know what was happening to me, but I got disgusted the moment she opened her slutty mouth. I switched the video off after I played it for a full 30 minutes. I called Pam's parents to join us because I didn't understand why they didn't call her parents. I mean, if it was a family meeting, both families were supposed to be present, but my family decided to deal with the issue alone and not include my wife's family. A while later, they arrived and I asked for the meeting to continue since all parties and their families were present. I then played the video again so that my in-laws would get an idea of why they were urgently called to the family meeting. Pam was busy weeping like someone had died, while my cousin looked at me like he begged for my blood. But I didn't care less because what they did to me was inhumane. No man would wish to see his wife getting banged by another man. Am I a bad person? The family meeting ended, and I had announced that I wanted to divorce Pam, but as expected, I was told that I can't divorce her because she was already a part of the family ancestrally, and I am connected to her since I was the one who took her innocence. I didn't understand that because even if she was a part of the family ancestrally, she could have still went back to her home, and I had paid for her innocence, so what they were saying was bullshit. A few weeks later, the family called another family meeting since my issue with Pamela was not resolved. Everyone was angry at how the meeting had turned. Names were exchanged, and it was a mess, and to top it all, they were blaming for my wife's infidelity. I would have understood if she had cheated with another boy from her school, but she decided to just cheat with one of my family members. The family sat me down and told me the things I didn't want to hear and I never expected. They pleaded with me to forgive my cousin and move on because what happened had happened. There was no way of changing or undoing what had happened. I couldn't believe them, so I asked if I were to forgive my cousin, what about the wife? Should I forgive her also? I couldn't accept the plea, and I didn't want to because they were taking me for a ride. They didn't take my heartbreak, my dignity, and my place as the victim. I was the victim in all of the situations, so I didn't understand how they could take the side of the people who betrayed me in the most cruel and shameful way. I was not going to forgive them. Pamela's family came to fetch her a month after the meeting had taken place. They were disappointed and hurt by their daughter's act. I assured them that I would continue paying for Pam's university fees so they wouldn't worry about it, but I wanted nothing to do with her. I wanted her gone. My father came to my house a while after my in-laws had departed. He also talked me out about forgiving my family. I didn't understand, and it shocked me that my own father didn't see things in my perspectives, and he didn't care about my feelings, rather the cousin's feelings and well-being. The only people I had support from were my brothers. I would never forget them for the support they had given me during my heartbreak period. About 5 months later, Pam's family came back with Pam. She was pushing a very big stomach. They came to our homestead to report Pam's pregnancy. I just didn't know how to feel about the whole thing because she had told me that she wanted to focus on her modules, so she didn't want any child. I understood her, but she had the nerve to open legs for my cousin and allow him to pull out inside her. What if the guy had a sickness or a virus, and if I didn't find out about the affair they were having, she was going to continue sleeping with me while sleeping with my cousin also. It's just disgusting. So, the family asked who the child belonged to. I thought she was going to tell the truth and there was really no need to ask who the father of the baby was. Instead, she told the family that the child was mine and she won't be able to take care of the child alone. while she was still traditionally married and she wanted to come back home to her husband. I told her to take the pregnancy to its rightful owner because I was not going to take any responsibility for the pregnancy I knew nothing about. And the last time I had been intimate with her, we used a protection, her rules. And it was 9 months before, which meant if the child was mine, she would have given birth by the time she came to my house to report the pregnancy. The hate I had for her grew more and more to a point that I even hated her smell. Why would she do something like that? Was she hoping that I would acknowledge and accept her lies while she knew the truth? I was not going and willing to do such a foolish thing. She should have thought twice before coming to my house to give me the child that was not mine. That thing was not going to affect only me, but the child also, because if I had acknowledged her pregnancy and took responsibility for the child was going to get sick because my cousin and I are not using the same surnames. I still loved her very much, but I couldn't allow her to make me a fool once again. So I threw her and her family out. I didn't care if she fell and got hurt. I was in the mix of hurt and anger. My family kept pestering me about forgiving my cousin because it was not good to stay angry at a family member for too long. In everything they had said, I only noticed that they were only asking me to forgive my cousin, but not my wife. If I asked why, they never mentioned anything or asked me to forgive Pamela also, because they were both on the wrong. The answers I got were, my wife didn't show any respect for herself and the family she got married to, meaning she was the cause of the drift between my cousin and I. The unfairness and politics they had, I didn't want to involve myself in it, so I came up with the decision of forgiving none of them because both of them were the cause of the drift. Things got tense and sour at home. The family was angry at me for having a cold heart, as they had put it. It was no longer a happy and united family. Well, they assumed that I was the one who made things like how they got, because if I had not released or showed them the video and pictures of Pamela and my cousin, none of the family members would be angry at each other. My father took my cousin's side and told me that if I gave my wife time and attention, she wouldn't have fallen in another man's arms, so everything was on me. I couldn't believe my father. I mean, these two people embarrassed me and tarnished my dignity as a man and a husband. Was I not supposed to go to work so I could provide for my wife and be able to pay for her university fees? Was not a man enough by wanting and striving for what's best for my wife and our future children? Please make me understand because I am really failing to. Time passed and I moved out from home because things were no longer the same. My father had started getting sick. My brother said I was the cause of his sickness because of my selfishness. I was shocked when my brothers had also turned their backs on me. I mean, I didn't ask my father to take my cousin's side and not put his own child to his best interests. Instead, he joined the people who wanted to tarnish my name and forced me to forgive my cousin. I had no problem forgiving my cousin, you know? But what pissed me off more is the fact that they were treating my cousin as the victim in everything, and I was the villain. I decided to move out. Well, I got an apartment in the city, so I would be closer to work. But before I moved out, I got cursed by my aunt, cousin's mom, wishing bad luck upon me. That was pure witchcraft and evil of her. How can you curse your brother's child for your son's doings? I was so disappointed with my family, they even made me choose that I should either forgive my cousin or move out of the homestead until I have made up my mind and stop acting like a teenager. I chose to move out, not because I was childish or something, but I wanted them to consider their statements. They were all in the wrong, and I felt like they were acknowledging that the mess my cousin made along with my wife was a good thing. There were two parties in the ordeal, but they wanted me to forgive only one part. How fair is that? A couple of months later, I received a call from Pamela, asking for forgiveness and wanting to fix things. I didn't have time for her and her emotional blackmailing. During those months, Pamela's father passed on, and I was forced to go and pay my respect to the family as a husband, of course. In our culture, you are forced to attend either a funeral or any ceremony for your in-laws because you and that family are lawfully banded to each other, meaning you are one of them even if you and your husband no longer get along. Since we lived in the village that is ruled by the king, what happens in your household must stay and be solved in your household, and make sure that the family household issues do not reach the outside community. Unless if someone has done something unlawful and endangering the villagers, then the issue will be taken to the king. The king will then decide how to punish that sinner and what kind of punishment is good for them. So on the other hand, My issue was a family issue. So I had to pretend in front of the nosy villagers to be in good space with Pamela. It was really hard pretending, but it somehow felt good to be in her presence again, even though my heart was no longer beating for her. It had released her. So I played my good husband and son-in-law role for the whole weekend. It was really hard pretending. People, please don't pretend, rather be rare and real than being fake and famous. It was not nice. Pamela's baby was looking so much like my cousin, and that really added to my hard heart, because she was so sure that the child was mine, knowing very well that I was not the father. What was she hoping to achieve? Because even if the child had turned out to be mine, I wouldn't have gotten back with her, but I would have taken responsibility for my child. The following year, Pamela graduated from university. I was really happy and proud of her. I mean, she showed me that I was not paying for anything, so it made me proud that she took her modules seriously. The relationship of my cousin and Pamela continued. I guess she was not really apologizing when she came to apologize the last time. Their relationship was no longer a secret. Villagers had found out about it, and my family became the talk of the village. Truthfully, I didn't feel anything when they officialized their relationship, not even a pang of jealousy, which meant I was really over Pamela. So I called the whole family for a meeting. It had been since I had hatred and hunger for vengeance towards my cousin and Pamela, so it was time to let things be and let bygones be bygones. Not for them, but for my conscience and peace. I didn't want my family to keep hating me for something I would have long done. So during the meeting, I asked them to call Pam and my cousin. When everyone was there, I then told them that I was forgiving them and gave them my blessings to their relationship. After I had told them that, I then took the beaded bracelet that Pam had given me when she chose me and gave it back to her so she can give it to the right person since I was no longer her man. Another month passed. My cousin asked me to accompany him to ask for a hand in marriage for Pam at her homestead. I knew my cousin was somehow cheesy, but he should have known at least half of our traditions since he also grew up in the village. My father had gotten better after I had released my heart and appeased the ancestors for my behavior. So he told my cousin that Pamela was lawfully and ancestrally married to me, meaning she belonged to my family clans, so if he wanted to ask for Pam's hand in marriage, he should do that to me. I had never thought that such a facade would one day happen to me, like having to hand my wife, or must I say ex-wife, to my cousin. It was just unbelievable. I still believed that they would somehow break up and realize their wrongs. I had once asked Pam why she gave me the beaded bracelet if she wanted to be with my cousin, and what I got was she was advised by her mother that she should choose me in the reed dance because I would be able to take care of her and her family, so she had to pause her relationship with my cousin. How crazy is that? So she told me that she knew that I would be able to take her to school and build her home because I had a good paying job and my cousin was still a student. That was why she chose to go to Durban University of Technology, so she can be able to see and be with my cousin, meaning that she used me for her own and her family's benefit. I wouldn't have been surprised if her mother also advised her to say that the child was mine, knowing very well that there was no possible way the child would have been mine. I was no longer angry or disappointed, but I was aggrieved, so she chose me because I was a meal ticket to her. I was going to be Bob the Builder in her home and be the student fund in her studies. I couldn't say anything anymore, but I was glad that she had told me the whole truth at the end. Her bride price was paid and she was officially out of my life. Did I deal with the situation in the wrong way? Please advise me.